Hello and good evening. Thank you for joining for tonight's dark and scary cryptid horror stories. Let us know in the comments where you are listening from and if there is a cryptid you would like me to make a story on. Now for tonight's stories, I hope you enjoy. Blackwater Operation. Prologue. Last transmission. The audio log played over static, the voice distorted by panic and bad equipment. Command, this is Echo 9. We have visual contact with multiple targets in the water. Repeat, targets are in the water with us. Thermal imaging shows, Jesus, they're massive. Command, request immediate extraction. We area. The sound of water churning, something massive breaking the surface. Oh God! Screaming, multiple voices, the wet snap of breaking bone, a sound like canvas tearing. Then silence. The recording continued for another 47 seconds. In that time, listeners could hear heavy breathing gradually slowing, something moving through water, large, unhurried, a crunching sound like boots on gravel but wet. Then a voice, not human, not words but vibration, a frequency that made teeth ache, made bowels loosen, made the primitive part of the brain scream run. The recording ended. In the Pentagon bunker, the lights were dimmed. The assembled men and women, a SEAL, scientists, intelligence officers, sat in silence, the echo of that final sound still ringing in their ears. Echo 9 was a six-man team, said the man at the front, Colonel Abraham Vance, his face carved from Appalachian granite. Naval Special Warfare Group 2, some of the best operators this country has produced. He paused, letting that sink in. They're all dead. Chapter 1. The Assembly. Dr. Lyle Carter wasn't supposed to be there. He sat at the back of the briefing room, his clearance credentials hanging from a lanyard that marked him as a consultant, not military. His suit was wrinkled, his tie askew, his hair what remained of Eda sticking up in gray tufts. He looked like a man who'd been dragged from a bar at 3 a.m., which was accurate. He hadn't been sober in 3 years. Dr. Carter. He looked up. Colonel Vance was staring at him, the rest of the room following the colonel's gaze. You have something to add? Carter considered lying, considered claiming he'd zoned out, wasn't paying attention, had nothing to say. But the recording was still playing in his head, that terrible final sound, and he couldn't keep silent. The frequency, he said, his voice rough from whiskey and cigarettes. At the end, the vocalization. What about it? It's not vocalization, not in the biological sense. Carter stood, shaky but determined, and walked to the front of the room. He pulled up the audio waveform on the display, pointing to the final seconds. This pattern, see these harmonics, they're infrasonic, below the range of human hearing, but they carry. So it's loud, Vance said. It's communicative. Carter traced the waveform with his finger. Look at the structure. It's not random, it's language or something like it. Silence. You're telling me this thing is talking to us? Vance asked. I'm telling you this thing is talking to something. Maybe to other members of its species. Maybe to, Carter trailed off, realizing how insane he sounded. I don't know, but it's not an animal, Colonel, not in the way you understand animals. Then what is it? Carter met Vance's eyes. It's intelligent, and it's been here a very long time. Vance studied him for a long moment, then turned to the room. Dr. Carter is our resident expert on undiscovered aquatic species. He was consulted on the Echo 9 mission. His recommendations were disregarded. Carter flinched. The Echo 9 team had ignored his warning to avoid the water at night. They'd paid for that mistake. He's here because he knows more about what's in that lake than anyone else alive, Vance continued. And because he's the only civilian willing to go back. Go back, Carter said. You want to send another team after what happened to Echo 9? We're not sending a team, Vance said. We're sending an army. He clicked a button and the screen changed. Satellite imagery of Bear Lake, Idaho, thermal signatures superimposed, movement tracks. "We've been monitoring the lake for 18 months, Vance said. Since the Echo 9 incident, the thermal readings show multiple large bodies in the water, not just one, at least 3 adults, possibly more. And Thesia." He highlighted smaller signatures, clustered near the adults. "Juveniles, the thing is breeding." Carter felt his stomach turn. "That's impossible. The biomass requirements are being met," Vance finished. "We've been tracking missing persons in the region. Hikers, fishermen, a Boy Scout troop, all within 50 miles of the lake, all vanished without a trace. It's hunting. It's farming." Vance pulled up another Imagia sonar readings from the lake bottom. "Look at this." Carter leaned forward. The sonar showed not just the lake bed but structures, organized formations, channels and tunnels and caves, he whispered. "It's excavating." "Or it's found something already there," Vance said. "Something we didn't put there." He turned to face the room. "Gentlemen, we're mounting a full-scale operation. Capture if possible, termination if necessary. We're calling it Operation Blackwater." "And if we fail?" someone asked. Vance's expression didn't change. "Then we sterilize the site, nuke the lake bed, turn Bear Lake into a crater." He looked at Carter. "Any questions, Doctor?" Carter had 100, but the only one that mattered was, "When do we leave?" Chapter 2, The Team. They were briefed separately. The SCA Elson Naval Special Warfare Development Group, the elite of the Elidia, got the tactical briefing. Weapons, formations, extraction protocols. Carter got the biological briefing. The creature was massive. Current estimates put the adults at 40 to 60 feet in length, based on the thermal signatures and the damage to Echo 9's boat. The body was serpentine, segmented, with evidence of vestigial limbs along the flanks. "Limbs?" Carter asked the biologist running the briefing, a young woman named Dr. Sarah Chen. "Like legs." "Like arms," Chen corrected. "Small, non-functional, possibly evolutionary remnants, or what? Or they might be functional in the juveniles." Chen pulled up images of the smaller thermal signatures. "These are growing fast, too fast, if they follow normal developmental patterns. They'll be fully mobile on land within months." Chen nodded, her face pale. "The adults are aquatic, confined to water, but if the young can leave the lake, they can spread." Carter understood now. This isn't just about Bear Lake. This is about containment, about preventing an invasive species from establishing itself across the continent. "Exactly." The SEALs were introduced in the mess hall. 12 men, faces hardened by combat in places Carter couldn't pronounce, names he wouldn't remember. Their leader was Chief Petty Officer Marcus Webb, a mountain of muscle with eyes that had seen too much. "Dr. Webb said, nodding, heard you're the fish expert." "I'm a marine biologist," Carter said, "and it's not a fish." "No. It's something else, something older." Carter accepted the coffee Webb offered, wrapping his hands around the warmth. "How much were you told?" "That we're hunting a monster in a lake. That 6 of our brothers died trying to bag it. That we're not making the same mistakes." "And what mistakes were those?" Webb's eyes were cold. "They went in at night. They went in alone. They didn't have enough firepower." "The firepower won't matter," Carter said. "Not if you don't understand what you're fighting. So educate me." They sat at a corner table away from the others. Carter pulled out his notes, his sketches, his theories. "It's not just a predator. It's intelligent, possibly sentient. The vocalizations at the end of the Echo 9 recording, they're communicative. The creature can coordinate, plan, possibly even a tool use. I don't know, but the caves suggest architecture, organization." Webb leaned forward. "Doctor, I've fought insurgents in Fallujah, pirates off Somalia, cartels in Mexico. I've seen humans do terrible things to each other. You're telling me this thing is smarter than us? I'm telling you it might be older than us. Carter met Webb's gaze. Homo sapiens is 300,000 years old. This creature's ancestors might go back to the Devonian, before mammals, before reptiles, when the world was nothing but water and monsters. So it's a dinosaur. It's worse. Carter leaned back, suddenly exhausted. Dinosaurs were animals. This is something else. Something that survived the extinction events, that adapted to changing conditions, that learned to hide from the thing that replaced it at the top of the food chain. Us, Carter finished his coffee, and now we've found it, or it's decided to stop hiding. Webb was quiet for a long moment. We'll kill it, he said finally. Whatever it is, however smart, we'll kill it and its spawn and we'll salt the earth. I hope so, Carter said. But he didn't believe it. Chapter 3, Night Insertion. They went in at 300, the hour of the wolf, when human circadian rhythms hit their lowest point. The zodiacs cut through the fog like knives, engines muffled, running lights extinguished. 12 SEALs in 3 boats, plus Carter in the command boat, plus Vance overseeing from a helicopter that circled at 5,000 feet, watching through thermal imaging. The plan was simple. Establish a perimeter, deploy sonar buoys, locate the adults, tag them with tracking devices. If capture was possible, they'd attempt it. If not, they'd mark the targets for the sterilization strike. Carter knew the plan was insane. They made it to the drop point without incident, a shallow cove on the lake's north shore, where the water was only 20 feet deep and the bottom was visible in the moonlight. The SEALs deployed silently, fins and masks and underwater propulsion vehicles that would let them cover distance quickly without surface noise. Carter stayed in the boat with the radio operator, monitoring sonar from above. Contact, the operator whispered, pointing to his screen. Large mass 300 meters south, depth 40 feet. Is it moving? Not yet. Carter raised his binoculars, scanning the fog-shrouded surface. Nothing, but his skin prickled, the primitive part of his brain sensing something the conscious mind couldn't identify. Tell them to pull back, he said. Sir. Tell Webb to pull back, something's wrong. The radio operator hesitated, then keyed his mic. Echo leader, this is command. Recommend you pull back. The water erupted. Not from the contact south of them, from the cove, from directly beneath the boats. The command Zodiac was lifted from below, thrown 10 feet into the air, spinning like a toy. Carter was thrown clear, hitting the water hard, the shock of cold driving the breath from his lungs. He surfaced, gasping, and saw the thing. It was massive. The head alone was the size of a car, armored in plates that looked like bone, jagged jaws snapping shut on the command Zodiac's hull. The boat came apart like cardboard, men screaming, thrashing in the water. The creature dove, taking 2 SEALs with it. Contact, contact, the radio was screaming. Multiple contacts, they're all around us. Carter swam, not toward the Sharia too far, but toward the remaining Zodiac, where Webb was hauling men aboard, firing into the water with a sidearm. Climb, Webb shouted, grabbing Carter's collar, dragging him over the gunwale. Everyone hold on. The engine roared, the boat surging forward, bouncing across waves that shouldn't exist in a lake this calm. Behind them, the water boiled, shapes breaking the surface, jaws snapping, missing by inches. It was waiting, Carter gasped, clutching his chest, his heart hammering. It knew we were coming. How? I don't know, but it was ready. The Zodiac reached the shallows, running aground on the rocky beach. The SEALs scrambled out, weapons ready, forming a defensive perimeter around the boat. But the creatures didn't follow. The water calmed, the fog thickened, And from the darkness that sound came again of the infrasonic rumble, the language of the deep, vibrating in their chests, in their bones. It was laughing at them. "Casualties," Webb said, counting his men. 3 down, 2 missing, 7 operational. 7 against how many? Carter asked. "Doesn't matter," Webb checked his rifle. "We adapt, we overcome, we complete the mission." But Carter could see the fear in his eyes. The SEALs were brave, but they weren't stupid. They'd just seen 3 men die in seconds, and the enemy hadn't even shown its full strength. "Colonel Vance," Webb said into his radio, "requesting extraction and reinforcements." The radio crackled. "Negative, Echo Leader. Extraction not possible at this time." "Say again." "The helicopter is experiencing mechanical difficulties. You are to proceed with mission parameters." Carter looked up. The sky was empty. The helicopter of Vance's command platform was gone. "He's abandoned us," one of the SEALs whispered. "No," Webb said, but his voice was uncertain. "He's regrouping, he'll be back." Carter didn't believe that either. They were alone on the shore, surrounded by water, hunted by things that knew them better than they knew themselves. And the night was just beginning. Chapter 4: The Hunt. They moved inland, away from the water, following game trails that wound through pine forest. The SEALs were professionals, so they didn't panic, didn't abandon the mission, even with 3 men dead and command incommunicado. But Carter could see the strain. These were men used to fighting other men, enemies who bled, who died, who followed comprehensible rules. The things in the lake didn't follow rules. They didn't fight fair. "We need to reassess," Carter said, catching up to Webb. "No time." "There's always time to not die." Carter grabbed his arm, forcing him to stop. "Chief, you saw what happened. It ambushed us. It knew where we'd be when we'd be there. It's not an animal." "Then what is it?" "I told you, it's intelligent." Carter let go, stepping back. "Which means we can't predict it based on animal behavior. It doesn't just hunt or it strategizes." "So what do we do?" Carter looked at the forest around them, the dark water visible through gaps in the trees. "We change the rules. We make it react to us, instead of us reacting to it." "How?" "Bait." They found the remains 2 miles from the shore. The body of what was left of Ida was wedged between rocks at the edge of a stream. A hiker from the gear. Backpack, boots, the shredded remains of a Gore-Tex jacket. And the bones. The skeleton was intact mostly, but the flesh was gone. Not eaten or removed, cleaned. The bones were bleached white, stripped of every trace of tissue. "Acid," Chen said. She'd insisted on joining the mission despite the danger, claiming her expertise was essential. "Look at the etching. Something secreted digestive fluid onto the prey. Let it work then." "Then what?" "Then sucked out the slurry like a spider." She looked up, her face pale. "It's not just a predator, Dr. Carter, it's a processor. It doesn't just kill, it harvests." Carter knelt beside the remains. The skull was cracked, the brain cavity empty. "They eat the nervous system first," he said. "The spinal cord, the brain, high-energy tissues." "Why?" "Because they're smart." Carter stood, wiping his hands on his pants. "And smart takes calories." They left the remains and kept moving, following the stream upward, toward higher ground. The plana Carter's plana was to find a ridge overlooking the lake, establish an observation post, and use the remaining sonar equipment to map the underwater caves. If they could find where the creatures laired, they could target them. Explosives, perhaps, or sonar weapons. Something to drive them out of the water onto land, where the SEALs' advantages would matter. "There's a cave system," Chen said, consulting her tablet. "Limestone karst, extends from the mountains to the lake, if the creatures are using it." "They could travel underground," Carter finished the thought. "Anywhere there's water, anywhere with caves." "That's half the United States." "That's the problem." They reached the ridge by dawn, exhausted, running on adrenaline and caffeine. The SEALs established defensive positions while Carter and Chen set up the portable sonar, lowering the hydrophones into the lake from the rocky overhang. The readings came back immediately. "Jesus," Chen whispered. The screen showed a maze of tunnels, chambers, passages extending deep underground. The cave system was larger than anyone had realized, a network of water-filled caverns stretching for miles. And in those caverns, movement. Dozens of contacts, Carter said, counting. No hundreds, most are smaller juveniles, but there. He pointed to 3 massive signatures, clustered in the deepest chamber. The adults. "They're not moving," Webb observed, "hibernating." "Or waiting." Carter adjusted the frequency, trying to get clearer readings. "Look at this." The image resolved, showing not just the creatures but the chamber itself. And in that chamber, arranged around the adults. "Arthasia," Chen started. "Bones," Carter felt his stomach turn. Piles of them, cattle, deer, and human. The chamber was a charnel house. Skeletons stacked like cordwood, arranged in patterns that might have been ritual or might have been practical. Fresh kills near the entrance, older remains deeper in. "It's caching," Carter said, "storing food." "For what?" "For the young." Carter pointed to the smaller signatures swarming through the tunnels. "They're not just breeding, they're raising them, teaching them." "Teaching them what?" "How to hunt us." The realization hit them all at once. This wasn't an infestation. It was a colony, a civilization of sorts hidden beneath the earth, emerging only to feed. "We need to get down there," Webb said. "Plant charges collapse the caves." "We'd never make it." Carter pointed to the hydrophone readings. "Those tunnels are narrow, underwater, and filled with juveniles. We'd be dead before we reach the adults. Then we draw them out." "How?" Webb looked at Carter, then at Chen, then at the bone pile on the screen. "We give them what they want." Chapter 5: The Nest. The plan was desperate, possibly suicidal, but it was the only option. They would enter the cave system through a secondary entrancea, a sinkhole 2 miles from the lake, dry during drought but currently feeding groundwater into the main cavern. They'd descend, plant explosive charges at strategic points, and trigger a collapse that would bury the adults and drown the juveniles. The explosives were already prepared as shaped charges designed to crack bedrock, plus backup detonators in case the primaries failed. The SEALs would carry them. Carter and Chen would provide guidance. "You're not coming," Webb said. "I have to," Carter replied. "You need someone who can read the sonar, who can identify the weak points in the cave structure." "We'll manage." "You'll die," Carter met his eyes. "I've been studying these things for 3 years, Chief. I've mapped their caves, analyzed their behavior, tracked their movements. You need me down there." Webb considered. "Fine, but you stay behind us. You don't engage. You run if things go bad." "Understood." They descended into the sinkhole at noon, when the sun was high and the creatures, according to Carter's theories, would be least active. The entrance was a vertical shaft, 40 feet of limestone and mud, with iron rungs hammered into the rock by previous explorers. The SEALs went first, fast and silent, securing the descent before Carter and Chen followed. The cave at the bottom was narrow, wet, the air thick with the smell of minerals and decay. Headlamps illuminated stalactites and flowstone, formations that had taken millennia to create and minutes to shatter with careless boots. "Sound carries," Webb whispered, "whispers only." They moved in single file, following the sonar map toward the main chamber. The path was treacherous as slippery rock, sudden drops, passages that required crawling through mud. Carter tried not to think about what might be in that mud. They passed the first juvenile after 20 minutes. It was small, only 4 feet long, pale and translucent like a cave fish. It was feeding on something, a dead rabbit, maybe, or a fish that had washed in from the Surfacia and didn't notice them until they were almost on top of it. Hold, Webb breathed. The juvenile looked up, its eyeless head questing. It had no eyes, just pits, sensory organs that detected vibration and heat. Its mouth was a vertical slit, toothless in the young, but capable of expanding to swallow prey whole. It made a sound, a chirp, high-pitched, almost cute. Then it lunged. The seal was fast. He sidestepped, brought his knife down, pinned the creature to the rock. It thrashed, squealing, black fluid leaking from the wound. "Don't kill it," Carter whispered. "It'll alert the others." Too late, Webb pointed ahead. The passage was filling with shapes, pale bodies swarming toward them, drawn by the juvenile's distress call. "Run," Webb shouted, the secrecy abandoned. "Move." They ran. The passage opened into a larger cavern, and suddenly they were surrounded. Juveniles everywhere, dozens of them, emerging from side tunnels, dropping from crevices in the ceiling. They weren't attacking, not yet, but they were herding, guiding, pushing the humans toward something. "Ambush," Webb opened fire, his suppressed rifle making wet thuds in the enclosed space. Juveniles died, exploded, but more kept coming. "This way," Carter pointed to a side passage, narrower, steeper. "Up." They climbed, the seals forming a rear guard, firing as they retreated. Chen was heated not by teeth, but by the creature's tails, whipping blows that cracked ribs and broke bones. She fell. "Leave her," Carter shouted, grabbing Webb's arm. "She's gone." Webb hesitated, then nodded. They kept climbing, leaving Chen to the swarm, her screams cut short by the vertical mouths. They reached a ledge, a shelf above the main cavern, and looked down. The adults were awake. All three of them, rising from the bone piles, their massive bodies uncoiling, jaws snapping. They moved with terrible speed for creatures their size, climbing the walls, the vertical jaws opening wider than seemed possible. "Charges," Webb shouted. "Set them now." The seals worked frantically, planting explosives at the weak points. Carter had identified fault lines in the rock, stress points that would bring the ceiling down. They had maybe 2 minutes before the adults reached them. "Done," Webb called. "Remote detonators." He tossed them to Carter. "You trigger, we'll cover." "What?" "Someone has to stay, make sure they don't disarm them." Webb smiled, grim and final. "That's my job." "Chiefa." "Go, doctor, find the surface. Tell them what we found." Carter looked at the explosives, at the approaching monsters, at the seals preparing to sell their lives dearly. "Thank you," he said. Webb laughed. "Don't thank me yet, you still have to get out." Carter ran. Behind him, the firing started. Heavy weapons, explosives, the desperate last stand of men who knew they were dead but weren't going quietly. He didn't look back. Chapter 6: Collapse. The passage was a nightmare. Carter ran blindly, following the sonar map from memory, trying to find the route back to the surface. The explosion started behind him, first distant, then closer, the seals fighting their way toward the adults, trying to lure them into the kill zone. Then the main charges went off. The blast was physical, a pressure wave that knocked Carter off his feet, that filled his mouth with dust, that crushed the air from his lungs. The ceiling came down behind him, tons of limestone collapsing, sealing the passage, burying the adults, the juveniles, the seals. Carter was buried too. He woke in darkness, his headlamp shattered, his body aching, his ears ringing. He couldn't see, couldn't hear, could barely breathe. The air was thick with dust and moisture and the smell of wet stone. He crawled. The collapse had opened new passages, or revealed old ones, he couldn't tell which. He followed the flow of water, knowing it had to lead somewhere, had to eventually reach the surface. Time lost meaning. Minutes or hours, he couldn't say. He crawled through spaces too narrow, swam through pools of water that might have been inches or feet deep. He felt things in the water, small things, cold things, that brushed against his skin and moved away. The juveniles, some had survived. He kept crawling. Light, faint, distant, but light. Carter crawled faster, dragging his broken body toward it. The passage widened, opened, and he was falling, tumbling down a slope, rolling, landing hard on rock. He looked up. He was in the main cavern. Not destroyed, not collapsed, but changed. The explosives had done damage. Piles of rubble blocked passages, the bone heaps scattered, but the chamber still stood. The water still flowed, and in that water, movement. One adult was dead, pinned under fallen stone, its body crushed, black fluid pooling around it. But the other two were alive, injured but active, their segmented bodies weaving through the debris. And they were looking at him. Carter tried to run, but his legs wouldn't work. He'd broken something in the fall, maybe his pelvis, maybe his spine. He dragged himself toward the nearest passage, but he was too slow. The creatures were faster. They didn't charge. They approached slowly, carefully, the vertical jaws opening and closing, tasting the air. Carter could see the damage the explosives had done: burns, cracks in the armor, missing scales. But they were still deadly. Still hungry. "Go ahead," he gasped, his voice echoing. "Get it over with." The lead creature stopped, tilted its head, and made a sound. Not the infrasonic rumble, not the hunting call, but something else. A pattern of clicks and whistles, almost questioning. You can understand me," Carter whispered. The creature moved closer. Its head was level with his now, those pit eyes staring into his soul. The mouth opened, the proboscis emerging, touching his forehead. It was warm. And suddenly Carter saw. Images flooded his mind, not words but concepts, memories older than humanity. The world before the continents split, the endless oceans, the first creatures to crawl onto land and the things that followed them. They had been kings once, rulers of the deep, intelligent, organized, masters of the water. Then the world changed. The climate shifted, the waters receded, and they were forced underground into the caves, into the hidden places, waiting for the world to change again. Waiting for so long. Millennia of sleep, of hibernation, waking only when the water table rose, when prey was abundant, when the time was right. And now humans. Not prey at first, just observers. The creatures watched from the depths as humanity spread across the surface, building cities, poisoning waters, changing everything. They waited. They were patient. But humanity found them. Echo 9, the first contact, the first killing. And now this. The creature pulled back, the connection breaking. Carter gasped, returning to his body, to the pain, to the terror. "You don't want to kill us," he said, his voice breaking. You just want to survive." The creature made that sound again, the questioning chirp. "I can help you," Carter said, desperate, insane, knowing he was bargaining for his life with something that might not comprehend bargains. I can make them understand, make them leave you alone." The second creature moved, its jaws opening. Carter tensed, waiting for the end. But the first creature, the one that had touched him, blocked it, made a sound, commanding final. The second creature backed away. The first turned back to Carter, stared at him with those pit eyes, and slowly, deliberately it nodded. Then it turned and swam away, into the darkness, leaving Carter alone in the ruined cavern. He lay there for hours, maybe days, drifting in and out of consciousness. Eventually, rescue came, not the military, but local cavers who'd heard the explosions and investigated. They found him babbling, delirious, talking about ancient empires and bargains with monsters. They carried him out on a stretcher, through passages that shouldn't have been passable, past pools that reflected light that wasn't there. He never saw the creature again. but sometimes in his dreams he heard the singing. Chapter 7: The Extraction. They pulled him from the cave on a stretcher, his body broken, his mind fractured. The cave saw two men from the local grotto club who'd heard the explosions and come to Investigatia had found him delirious, dehydrated, barely alive. They'd also found the bodies. The seals were buried under tons of stone, crushed by the collapse, their bodies mangled beyond recognition. The explosives had done their job. The main chamber was blocked, the passages sealed, the creatures trapped beneath the earth. Or so they thought. Carter spent 3 weeks in the hospital, his pelvis fractured, 3 ribs broken, his right arm in a cast. The doctors said he was lucky to be alive. The military said he was a security risk. He spent the first week under guard, his room monitored, his visitors screened. Colonel Vance came once, his face gray with exhaustion, demanding to know what had happened in the caves. The charges went off, Carter said, his voice hollow. The cavern collapsed, the creatures were buried. And the seals? Dead, all of them. Vance had stared at him for a long moment. Webb was a good man. They all were. The mission was a failure. Vance stood, moving to the window, looking out at the Idaho mountains. We're pulling out, declaring the area a hazard zone. No one goes near the lake. And the creatures? Gone, buried. Carter didn't believe him. He was released from custody and not cleared, just released 2 weeks later, with a warning that he'd be monitored, that he couldn't discuss what he'd seen, that his security clearance was revoked. He didn't care. He went home to his apartment in Seattle, the apartment that smelled of whiskey and old books, and he sat in the dark and he waited. Because he knew they weren't dead. He'd seen it in that final vision. The creatures were old, ancient, survivors of extinction events that had wiped out 90% of life on Earth. A cave collapse wouldn't kill them. It would just make them angry. And they were patient. 3 months later, the disappearances started again. Not at Bear Lackia, that was sealed, quarantined, surrounded by fences and warning signs, but elsewhere, other lakes, other rivers, other caves. Lake Tahoe, Crater Lake, the Missouri River, the Florida Everglades. Always near water, always during the dark hours, always people who wouldn't be missed immediately, hikers, vagrants, the occasional drunk who wandered too close to the shore. The bodies, when they were found, were desiccated, drained, bones stripped clean. The official story was a serial killer, a cult, a new drug that caused delirium and dehydration. Carter knew better. He started tracking them, using his old contacts, his old clearance, the skills he'd developed mapping the Bear Lake creatures. He found patterns, corridors, underground waterways that connected seemingly isolated bodies of water. The creatures were traveling. Not just one group, but multiple groups, multiple colonies, emerging from their hibernation across the continent. They were spreading, slowly, carefully, avoiding detection, building their numbers. And they were communicating. He found evidence in the sonar recordings, in the thermal signatures, in the patterns of movement. The creatures were talking to each other across thousands of miles, coordinating, planning. For what? He didn't know, but he knew it wasn't good. Chapter 8: The Truth. It was Chen who found him. Dr. Sarah Chen, who'd been left for dead in the caves, who'd somehow survived, crawled out through passages no one knew existed. She walked with a cane now, her ribs still healing, her face scarred from where a juvenile had raked her with its teeth. "You're tracking them," she said, sitting across from him in his apartment. "Someone has to. The government knows, they've always known." She pulled out a filia classified, stamped with warnings that could have put her in prison for decades. Project Leviathan, 1946 to present. Carter opened the file, his hands shaking. "They've known about these things since World War II," Chen said. maybe earlier. The Nazis found something in the Black Sea. The Americans found something in the Pacific. They've been studying them, hiding them, occasionally trying to kill them. Berlachia was an experiment. Chen leaned forward. Vance wasn't trying to exterminate them. He was trying to capture them for study, for weaponization. Weaponization. The infrasonic capabilities, the acid secretions, the biological processes that let them hibernate for centuries. Chen's voice was flat, factual. Imagine a weapon that could put an enemy army to sleep, or digest them from the inside, or track them through walls using vibration. That's insane. That's military thinking. Carter flipped through the file. Photos of other sites, other teams, other operations that had gone wrong. Men in radiation suits standing over pits. Submarines exploring trenches that shouldn't exist. Bodies, always bodies, arranged in the same patterns, the same desiccated state. The Bear Lake operation was supposed to be the breakthrough, Chen continued. Capture an adult, study it, learn to replicate its capabilities. But the creatures fought back. The creatures knew we were coming. Chen met his eyes. They let us come. They wanted to see what we'd do. Why? Because they're planning something. Chen stood, moving to the window. They're not just animals, Dr. Carter. They're not just predators. They're a civilization. Ancient, hidden, patient. And they've decided it's time to stop hiding. Time for what? I don't know, but the disappearances are increasing. The colonies are growing, and they're converging. Converging where? Chen turned back to him, her face pale. The Great Lakes, all the underground water systems connect there. If they establish a presence in freshwater on that scale, they'd have access to 40 million people. And we couldn't stop them. Carter stood, his injuries screaming, and walked to his computer. He pulled up the maps he'd been compiling, the patterns he'd been tracking. Look, he said, pointing to the screen. You're right, they're converging, but not just on the Great Lakes. Look at this. He highlighted other clusters, other convergence points. Lake Baikal, Russia, the deepest lake in the world. The Caspian Sea, the largest inland body of water. And this, he zoomed in on a point in the Pacific, the Mariana Trench, the deepest point in the ocean. Chen studied the map. They're not just spreading there. They're organizing. Carter sat back, his heart hammering. It's not random, it's strategic. They're positioning themselves at the points of maximum advantage, freshwater systems, deep water refuges, places where they can control the water supply. For what? Carter thought of the vision in the cave, the ancient memories, the endless patience. For the long game, he said. They're not planning to attack us, they're planning to outlast us. Outlast? Climate change. Carter pulled up climate models, projections of sea level rise, of flooding, of changing weather patterns. They're betting on the future, on a world with more water, not less. Chen stared at the models. They've seen this before. They've survived this before. Carter turned off the screen. The last time the climate shifted this fast, 90% of species went extinct, but they survived. They went underground and waited. And now they're positioning themselves to take advantage. When the floods come, when the coasts are underwater, when human civilization is struggling to adapt, they'll be ready. To do what? Carter didn't answer. He was thinking of the touch in the cave, the communication, the bargain. To inherit, he said quietly. Chapter 9, The Warning. They went public 3 days later. Not through official channels. Carter was still a security risk, Chen still under surveillance. Through the internet, through forums and social media and any platform that would listen. The video went viral. Carter looking haggard, holding his evidence. The sonar maps, the thermal readings, the classified documents Chen had smuggled out. He explained it all, the creatures, the colonies, the plan. "They're not monsters," he said in the video. "They're not demons, they're just another kind of life, older than us, smarter in some ways, and they've been waiting a very long time. The climate is changing, the ice is melting, the seas are rising, and they're ready. They've spent millennia preparing for this moment. We can't fight them, we can't exterminate them. They've survived every extinction event in Earth's history. They'll survive us. But maybe we can learn to live with them, to share the world, to negotiate." He held up the photograph of the last image from Bear Lake, taken by a SEAL's body camera before the collapse. The creature's head, its jaws open, its pit eyes staring. "They're watching us, they've always been watching, and now they're waiting to see what we do. The question is, will we be smart enough to survive what comes next?" The video got 10 million views in 24 hours. Then it was deleted. Carter's apartment was raided that night. Computers confiscated, files destroyed. He and Chen were taken into custody, held without charge, interrogated for weeks. But the damage was done. The world was asking questions, demanding answers, protesting near lakes and caves, demanding to know what was in the water. And the creatures, they stopped hiding. Epilogue The Eye. 1 year later. The world had changed, but not in the way Carter expected. The creatures hadn't attacked, hadn't swarmed, hadn't emerged from the waters to claim their inheritance. They'd simply revealed themselves. First at Bear Lake, where a massive shape had breached the surface during a news broadcast, lingered for 3 minutes while cameras recorded everything, then slipped back beneath the waves. Then at Lake Tahoe, then at Crater Lake, then at lakes across the world, Lake Baikal, the Caspian Sea, Loch Ness, Lake Victoria. They showed themselves, let themselves be seen, let the world know they were real. And then they waited. Governments panicked, militaries mobilized, but no one attacked. How could they? The creatures were in the water, in the ground, in places humans couldn't reach. Negotiations began. Not with words, so the creatures didn't use words, not in the human sense, but with presence, with gesture, with demonstration. They showed what they could do: the infrasonic communication, the biological manipulation, the geological control. They showed what they wanted: space, water, coexistence. And they showed what they would do if refused. The disappearances increased, the colonies expanded, the underground networks grew. It wasn't a war, it was a merger. Humanity, faced with an intelligent species it couldn't defeat, did what it always did. It adapted. Treaties were signata, not with signatures, but with shared resources, with mutual protection, with acknowledgement that the world was bigger than one species. The creatures became part of the world, part of the ecosystem, part of the civilization. Carter was released from custody after 6 months, his charges dropped, his record sealed. He became a consultant, an advisor, a bridge between two worlds. He never told anyone about the touch in the cave, about the bargain, about the vision of ancient empires and endless patience. Some things were better left unsaid. The photograph arrived on his desk 5 years later. No postmark, no return address, just an envelope with his name and inside a single image. A lake, deep water, and breaking the surface an eye. Not a human eye, something older, something patient, something that had waited 65 million years for this moment. The note was simple, written in a hand Carter didn't recognize. "Thank you for understanding, for speaking, for helping us find our voice. The world is yours now, but the water is ours. Remember, we are always watching. And we are always waiting." Carter looked at the photograph for a long time. Then he smiled and put it in his drawer and went back to work. Some debts you never repay. Some alliances you never acknowledge. And some monsters. Well, some monsters become friends. Post-credit tease. The document appeared on a secure terminal at the Pentagon. Origin unknown. Classified, Project Leviathan Phase 2, containment failure. Satellite imagery of Lake Baikal, Russia, thermal signatures, movement patterns. And in the deepest part of the lake, something new. Not the serpentine forms they'd tracked before. Something larger. Something moving. The final frame showed a shape rising from the depths, not 40 feet, not 60, but hundreds. A body that dwarfed the adults at Bear Lake. A head that could swallow a submarine. And eyes. Intelligent, ancient, hungry. The caption read, "The mother wakes, recommend immediate escalation." The screen went black. Then in white text. Project Leviathan, Phase 3 Extinction Protocol. Authorization pending. Black Ice Facility. The helicopter vanished into white nothingness before it had even finished lifting off. Dr. Naomi Simmons watched from the facility's only window as the chopper's red tail light was swallowed by the blizzard, leaving her completely, utterly alone. The radio had crackled something about a storm front moving in faster than predicted, then static, then nothing. "Welcome to Black Ice," the man behind her said. He'd introduced himself as Vance, the facility director. His skin was pale, too pale, even for someone who lived beneath the permafrost, and his smile didn't reach his eyes. "Your room is this way." Naomi followed him through corridors that smelled of rust and old blood. She was a forensic anthropologist, or had been, before the incident with the mass grave in Quebec. Now she was desperate enough to take a job that paid triple her previous salary, with an NDA that she'd signed without reading. The facility had been built in 1987, or so the file said. A Cold War relic converted into something else, something worse. "You'll want to see it tonight," Vance said, not asking. "The specimen, that's why you're here." "Subject W4, Naomi said. The file said. The file said nothing. Vance stopped walking. They were in a hallway lit by buzzing fluorescent tubes that cast everything in a sick yellow-green. "The file is lies, written by people who didn't understand what they were looking at. You'll understand, you're different." "How am I different?" Vance turned. His eyes, there was something wrong with them. The pupils were too dilated, even for the dim light, and they reflected the fluorescent glow with a faint orange luminescence that shouldn't have been possible. "You're dying," he said. "Aren't you?" Naomi felt ice form in her stomach. "That's not." "Lung cancer, stage 2. They told you 6 months, maybe a year with treatment. That's why you took this job, because you have nothing left to lose." He smiled again, and his teeth were too white, too even, too many. "The specimen can smell death. It likes death. It likes you." They walked in silence the rest of the way. Her quarters were a concrete cell with a metal cot, a sink, and a desk with a single lamp. The window looked out onto the frozen landscape, though the glass was so thick with frost she could barely see through it. Somewhere in the distance, the wind screamed like a woman in labor. Naomi unpacked her single bag. She'd brought books, texts on paleopathology, forensic osteology, a journal of hers filled with notes from excavations. She also brought her medication, though she hadn't taken any since leaving Anchorage. The doctors said it might give her another 3 months. What was the point? She also brought her father's pocket watch, sterling silver engraved with the words Tempus Fugit. It was cold against her palm. It was always cold. The knock at her door came at exactly 2200 hours. "Dr. Simmons," a woman's voice, young. "Director Vance asked me to escort you to the observation deck." Naomi opened the door. The woman outside was perhaps 25, with blonde hair pulled back in a severe bun and eyes that looked like they'd seen things. Her name tag read ELENA, Research Assistant. "You're new here," Naomi said, not a question. 3 months. Elena didn't smile. "Come, you'll want to see it." They walked deeper into the facility, descending via an elevator that groaned and shuddered with each floor they dropped. Naomi counted 7 levels. The file had mentioned 5. "How deep does this go?" she asked. Alina didn't answer. The elevator stopped at sublevel 7, and the doors opened onto a corridor that was different from the others. The walls were metal, not concrete, and they were covered in frost, thick, white frost that seemed to grow from the metal itself, forming patterns that almost looked like fingers, like hands reaching. "Don't touch the walls," Alina said. "Why not?" "You'll stick." They walked to the end of the corridor. A large window looked into a chamber beyond, a space the size of a cathedral carved from ice and rock. Naomi pressed her face to the glass, cold, so cold, and looked inside. The thing was suspended in the center of the space, held by cables that looked too thin to support its weight. It was enormous, at least 20 feet tall, though it was hard to judge scale in the dim blue light that illuminated the chamber. Its skin was pale blue-white, like deep glacier ice, and it was covered in what looked like frost that never melted. But it was the shape that made Naomi step back from the glass. It was vaguely humanoid, but wrong in every possible way. The limbs were too long, the joints bending in directions that would have shattered a human skeleton. The torso was elongated, stretched, and through its translucent flesh Naomi could see things moving inside, organs that pulsed and writhed, things that looked almost like smaller creatures swimming in the cold flesh. "Subject W4, Alina whispered. "The father. It's not dead. It's not alive either. Not in any way we understand. It doesn't breathe. It doesn't eat. It just waits. It's been waiting for 60 million years." Naomi looked closer. The thing's face, if it could be called a face, was turned away from them, but she could see the profile. The skull was elongated, stretched backward like a horse's skull, but wrong, all wrong, with too many eye sockets and a jaw that hung too low, filled with teeth that were translucent and needle-thin. "What is it?" Naomi breathed. "We don't know." Alina's voice was flat, emotionless. "It was found in 1987 during the excavation for this facility. It was buried in the ice that formed 60 million years ago, before mammals, before anything we'd recognize as life." "Then how?" "The ice preserves it. The cold is its natural state. It's not frozen, Dr. Simmons, it's just resting, waiting for warmth." Something in Alina's tone made Naomi turn to look at her. The research assistant was staring at the creature with an expression that wasn't quite fear, wasn't quite worship, something in between. "Why am I here?" Naomi asked. Alina finally looked at her. Those eyes, there was something wrong with them too. The same orange reflection she'd seen in Vance's gaze. "Because you're dying," Alina said, "and the father needs the dying, the almost dead. They taste different, better." Before Naomi could respond, the creature in the chamber moved. It was just a twitch, a spasm of that too long arm, but Naomi saw the frost on its skin crack, and beneath it she saw something dark, something that looked almost like blood, she whispered. "No," Alina said, "not blood, something else, something older, something that was warm once." The creature's head turned. It moved slowly, impossibly slowly, as if even this small motion required tremendous effort. But it turned, and its face, its face, pressed against the glass of the inner chamber, and Naomi saw that what she'd thought were empty eye sockets were not empty at all. They were filled with orange light. Glowing, pulsing, burning orange light that seemed to stare through the glass, through the air, through her very soul. The light flickered like flames in a wind, and with each pulse Naomi felt something in her chest respond. Her heart, her cancerous, failing heart. It beat in time with that orange glow, and each beat sent pain radiating through her chest, through her lungs, pain that made her gasp and clutch the window ledge. "It sees you," Alina whispered. "It likes you." "Make it stop," Naomi gasped. "Please." "It doesn't stop. It doesn't do anything. It just looks and waits." Alina smiled, and her teeth were wrong too sharp, too many. "It can wait forever." The orange light pulsed again, and this time Naomi felt something else. a warmth in her chest, spreading from her heart through her veins, melting ice that she hadn't known was there. It felt good. It felt like coming home. What? She started to ask. The Father is showing you what's coming, Alina said. What you could be, what you'll be, the warmth inside the cold, the life inside the death. She took Naomi's hand and her skin was like ice, like grabbing a statue carved from a glacier. Come, there's more to see. They walked away from the observation window, but Naomi could still feel those orange eyes on her back, burning through her jacket, through her skin, through her ribs, settling in her chest where the cancer grew and whispering promises of cold and comfort and an end to pain. Sublevel 8 was not on any map. The elevator had a button for it, but it was unlabeled, just a blank square of metal that Alina pressed with a keycard she wore on a lanyard around her neck. The elevator descended with a groan that sounded almost like pain, and when the doors opened, Naomi smelled something she'd smelled before. Mass graves, excavations where bodies had been dumped without ceremony, without care, left to rot in the earth, the smell of death old and new. What is this place? Naomi asked, but she already knew. They walked through a corridor lined with doors, metal doors with small windows, the kind you saw in old asylums, and from behind those doors came sounds, whimpering, crying, the scuttling of things that moved on too many legs. The nursery, Alina said. She opened the first door. The man inside had once been someone. Naomi could tell by the remnants of his clothes, a park ranger's uniform torn and stained. But what he'd become was something else. He was pressed against the far wall of his cell, his body contorted in a way that would have broken a normal spine. His head was tilted back at a 90-degree angle, and his mouth was open, stretched impossibly wide. And from his mouth, something was emerging. It was the size of a large dog, covered in pale blue-white skin that dripped with mucus. Its limbs were too long, like the Father's, and it moved with a skittering, jerking motion that made Naomi think of insects, of spiders, of things that lived in the dark and fed on the living. It's birthing, Alina said calmly. The Father doesn't reproduce in the way we understand. It converts. It transforms. It takes the warm and makes them cold. The process takes weeks, months. The host remains aware for most of it. The man, or what had been the man, made a sound. Not a scream, something lower, something that vibrated in Naomi's chest and made her teeth ache. He's thanking us, Alina said. They always thank us at the end. She closed the door. They walked to the next cell, and the next. Each one contained someone in a different stage of transformation. Some still looked mostly human, though their skin had taken on the blue-white pallor, and their eyes had begun to reflect light with that terrible orange glow. Others were further along, limbs stretched to breaking, heads elongated, mouths filled with the translucent needles that Naomi had seen in the Father's jaw. How many? Naomi managed to ask. 47, Alina said. We keep them here until they're ready, until they're fully cold. Then we release them. Release them where? Alina smiled. Into the world, into the warmth. They spread, you see, they find others. The Father doesn't need to reproduce quickly. It has time. It has all the time in the world. They reached the last cell. This one was different. The window was larger and the room beyond was not a cell but a chamber, and in the center of that chamber sat a child. He looked to be about 10 years old. Pale skin, dark hair, dressed in clothes that might have been fashionable 50 years ago. He was sitting cross-legged on the floor, and he was looking directly at Naomi. "Hello, Dr. Simmons," he said. His voice was wrong, too deep, too resonant, like something speaking from the bottom of a well. "I've been waiting for you. You know my name." "I know everything." The child stood. His movements were fluid, wrong, like he was learning to use his body for the first time. "I know about the cancer in your lungs. I know about the months you have left. I know about the treatments you refused because you wanted to die on your own terms." He stepped closer to the glass. "I know that you dream of ice, of cold, of an end to the warmth that burns you from the inside. Naomi felt tears on her cheeks. She didn't remember starting to cry. Who are you? I was like you once, warm, dying. Then I came here to this place to the father. The child smiled, and his teeth were the same as Alina's, as Vance's, too many, too sharp. He took my warmth. He made me cold. He made me eternal. And now I help him find others, others who are ready, others who want what I have. What do you have? The child pressed his hand against the glass. His palm was translucent. Through it, Naomi could see the bones, the tendons, things that pulsed and moved in ways that made her want to scream. I have forever, he said. No pain, no death, no warmth to burn me, just the cold, the beautiful, endless cold. He tilted his head and his neck stretched just a little, just enough to be wrong. I can give it to you. The Father wants to give it to you. He smells your cancer. He smells your decay. He wants to freeze it, to stop it, to make you perfect. I'm not. You're afraid, I understand. They all are at first, but you'll see. The child stepped back. There's a choice coming, Dr. Simmons, a choice you'll have to make. The storm has trapped you here. The helicopter won't return for 3 days. By then it will be too late. The Father will be awake, he will be hungry, and you will either join us. He paused, his orange eyes glowed brighter, or you will feed us. They locked her in her quarters. Not explicitly. Alina had walked her back, had said goodnight, had told her that dinner would be served in the cafeteria at 600. But Naomi knew. She'd seen the way the guards, pale, tall, wrong, had looked at her as she passed. She'd seen the way their hands had rested on weapons that weren't quite guns, that hummed with a frequency that made her fillings ache. She was a prisoner. Naomi sat on her cot and listened. The facility made sounds, the groan of ice shifting somewhere deep below, the hum of generators and other sounds, the scuttling of things in the vents, the whisper of voices speaking words she couldn't quite understand, the distant, rhythmic thumping that might have been footsteps or might have been something else, something huge moving in the dark. She thought of the Father, of those orange eyes, of the warmth that had spread through her chest when they looked at her. She was dying, she knew that. The cancer in her lungs was aggressive, inoperable. The doctors had given her 6 months with treatment, a year if she was lucky. She'd chosen to forego the chemo, the radiation, the suffering. She'd chosen to die clean, die whole, die herself. But now. She pulled up her shirt and looked at her chest. The scar from the biopsy was still there, a pink line just below her left breast. She touched it. It was warm. Everything was warm. Her body was a furnace burning itself out, cell by cell, breath by breath. What would it be like to be cold? What would it be like to stop, to freeze, to feel nothing, want nothing, fear nothing? The pocket watch lay on the desk. She picked it up. It was cold in her hand, cold and heavy and real. Tempus fugit, she whispered, time flies. But what if it didn't have to? What if it could stop? What if she could stop? She didn't sleep. She sat by the window and watched the blizzard rage, and she thought of the child in the cell and the thing in the ice and the warmth that had flooded her chest when the Father looked at her. At some point, she must have dozed, because she woke to the sound of screaming. It was coming from below, from sublevel 7 or 8 or somewhere deeper. It was a man's scream, high and terrified, and it went on and on and on, rising and falling in waves until suddenly it stopped. And then the silence was worse. Dawn didn't come. This far north in winter, the sun was a theoretical concept. But Naomi's watch said it was morning, and when Alina knocked on her door at 600, she was ready. Breakfast, Alina said. She was wearing different clothes now, a white coat over a dark dress, and she looked more like a doctor than a research assistant. Then we'll begin your orientation. Orientation for what? For what's coming. Alina smiled. The Father woke up 3 hours ago. He's hungry, and you're going to help us feed him. The cafeteria was a large room with metal tables and benches bolted to the floor. There were perhaps 20 people eating, and every one of them looked at Naomi as she entered. Their eyes, so many orange reflections, so many wrong smiles. The food was meat, Some kind of meat, pale and almost translucent, served raw on metal plates. Naomi sat with her plate untouched while Alina ate with obvious relish, those too many teeth tearing strips of flesh that looked almost like. "What is this?" Naomi asked. Alina chewed, swallowed. "Sustenance, you'll need your strength today." I asked what it is. Alina looked at her, that orange glow flickered in her eyes. "It's the previous specialist, Dr. Chen. She came before you, she wasn't suitable, she wanted to go home." Alina took another bite. "The father takes what he needs, the rest is recycled." Naomi looked at her plate, at the pale meat, at the way it glistened under the fluorescent lights. She vomited into the metal tray. No one reacted, they just watched her chewing, swallowing, their orange eyes glowing in the dim light. "You'll get used to it," Alina said. "They all do, eventually." The orientation lasted all day. They showed her the history of the facility, the original excavation in 1987, the discovery of the father, frozen in ice that predated human civilization, the early experiments, the failures. The first successful conversion in 1992, a woman named Sarah, dying of tuberculosis, who had volunteered to be treated with the father's essence. They showed her photographs. Sarah before, gaunt, coughing, consumed by disease. Sarah after, pale, beautiful, her eyes glowing with orange light, her skin flawless and cold. Sarah in 2024, 32 years later, looking exactly the same. "The cold preserves," Vance explained. He was leading the tour now, taking her through labs where things grew in vats of blue liquid, through chambers where frost formed patterns that looked almost like writing, like messages in a language older than words. "It stops entropy. It stops death. It stops everything. And in exchange, you serve, you spread, you find others who are ready." Vance stopped in front of another observation window. This one looked into a larger chamber, and in that chamber, Naomi saw movement. Dozens of them, the converted, the children of the cold. They moved with jerking, skittering grace, their two long limbs carrying them across the ice in patterns that might have been dance or might have been combat. Their orange eyes glowed in the dim light, and when they opened their mouths to scream or sing or speak, Naomi saw the needle teeth, the blue tongues, the things that lived in their throats. "An army," she whispered. "A family," Vance corrected. "The father's family, and soon you'll be part of it." "I haven't agreed to anything." Vance turned to her. His smile was gentle, almost fatherly. "You don't have to agree, you just have to stop running, stop fighting, stop being warm." He touched her chest, right above her heart, and his fingers were ice against her skin. "The cancer is growing, I can feel it. Another month, maybe 2, and you'll be too weak to walk. Another 6 and you'll be dead. But here with us you could live forever." As that, Naomi gestured at the creatures in the chamber, as something that eats human flesh and lives in the dark. As something that doesn't die, as something that doesn't fear, as something that is part of something greater than yourself. Vance's hand pressed harder. "The Father offers gifts, Dr. Simmons. He offers an end to pain, an end to fear, an end to the loneliness of being warm in a cold universe. All he asks in return is that you serve, that you spread, that you bring others to him." "And if I refuse?" Vance's smile didn't change. "Then you go in the vats with Dr. Chen, with the others who weren't suitable." He leaned close, and his breath smelled of cold, of ice, of something metallic and ancient. "But I don't think you'll refuse. I think you're tired of being warm. I think you're tired of burning. I think you want what we have." He stepped back. "Sleep on it. Tomorrow you choose." That night Naomi dreamed of ice. She was standing in a landscape of frozen white, and the sky was a deep blue-black filled with stars that weren't stars, that moved in patterns that hurt her mind to follow. In the distance, something moved, something vast, something that was made of cold itself, that wore the frost like skin, that looked at her with eyes of burning orange. The Father. He didn't speak in words. He spoke in feelings, in memories. He showed her the warmth of her mother's womb, the heat of her first fever, the burning agony of the cancer that was eating her from within. And then he showed her the alternative. Cold, stillness, peace. No more pain, no more fear, no more time, just the endless white, the eternal ice, the beautiful, perfect silence of being frozen forever. Choose, the voice whispered, and it was the child's voice and Alina's voice and Vance's voice and her own voice all speaking as one. Choose warmth and die. Choose cold and live. Choose life and burn. Choose ice and be. She woke with frost on her eyelashes. Her breath didn't steam in the cold air, and her chest, where the cancer grew, where the tumor pressed against her lung, didn't hurt anymore. They came for her at dawn. Vance, Alina, two guards with faces she didn't recognize, their skin too pale, their eyes too bright. Your choice, Vance said. Naomi stood. She was wearing the same clothes she'd worn yesterday, and they felt wrong against her skin. Too heavy, too warm. She wanted to tear them off. She wanted to feel the cold. I want to see it again, she said. The father before I decide. They led her down, past sublevel 7, past the observation windows, to a door that she hadn't seen before, a door that was covered in frost so thick it looked like fur. He's been asking for you, Alina whispered. He doesn't ask for many, you're special. The door opened. The chamber beyond was larger than she'd thought, cavernous. The father hung in the center, suspended by cables that groaned under his weight. He was 20 feet tall, or 30 or 50, scale meant nothing here. His skin was glacier blue, and through it she could see the things that moved inside, the organs that weren't organs, the life that wasn't life. And his eyes. Those burning orange eyes fixed on her, seeing her, knowing her. Naomi, the voice said, and it came from everywhere, from the ice, from the air, from inside her own skull. You've been dying for so long. Won't you let me stop it? She walked forward. The cold was intense, overwhelming. It should have hurt. It should have burned her skin, frozen her lungs, stopped her heart. But it felt like coming home. What are you? She asked. I am the end of warmth. The father's jaw didn't move when he spoke. The voice just was, resonating in her bones. I am the memory of when the universe was cold and dark and still. I am what remains when the stars burn out. I am the ice that waits at the end of all things. And you want me. I want all of you, the warm ones, the burning ones. I want to freeze you, to stop you, to make you part of me. I want to end the fire that consumes you. The orange eyes pulsed. You are dying, Naomi Simmons. Your cells are burning themselves alive. I can stop that. I can make you perfect. Cold and perfect and eternal. At what cost? Only warmth. Only the fire that destroys you. Only the time that ages you. Only the life that ends you. The father's arm rose, those two long fingers reaching toward her. Choose, Naomi. Choose cold. Choose peace. Choose me. She looked at those fingers, at the translucent skin, at the frost that coated them, that never melted, that preserved everything it touched. She thought of her mother, dead of cancer, her father, dead of grief. She thought of the years she'd spent digging in the dirt, looking for bones, looking for answers, finding only more death. She thought of the warmth in her chest, the pain, the fear, and she thought of the cold, the peace, the end. No, she said. The father's eyes flared. The orange light became blinding, searing, burning. No, the voice was still calm, still patient. Why? Because you're a parasite, Naomi stepped back. Because you don't offer life, you offer stasis, preservation, a pretty cage. She shook her head. I've spent my whole life studying death. I know what it looks like. And you're not the answer, you're just another way to die. The father's hand dropped. Then you choose the vats. I choose to walk out of here, she turned. The guards were there, their faces expressionless, their hands reaching. Alina was crying, tears of ice on her cheeks. Vance just looked sad. No one leaves, he said. Not once they've seen. Watch me, she ran. The corridors were a maze. She'd paid attention during the orientation, mapped the routes in her mind. But panic made her turn wrong, stumble, crash into walls that were cold. So cold, frost forming on her skin where she touched them. Behind her she heard them coming. Not running. The converted didn't run. They moved with that jerking, skittering grace, their two long limbs carrying them faster than any human could sprint. She found the elevator, pounded the button. The doors opened and she fell inside, hit the button for the surface, watched as the doors closed just as the first of them reached her. A child, or something that had been a child, its face stretched and wrong, its mouth filled with needles. The elevator rose. Naomi gasped, sucking in air that tasted of rust and old blood. Her lungs burned. The cancer protested, sending spikes of pain through her chest, but she was alive. She was warm, she was human for now. The elevator stopped. The doors opened, and she stepped out into hell. The surface level was changed. The walls were covered in frost, thick and white and growing, spreading, reaching. The lights were out, replaced by a dim blue glow that came from everywhere and nowhere. And the people, the staff, the guards, the researchers, were gathered in the corridor, waiting for her. They weren't human anymore. Their skin was blue-white. Their limbs were stretching even as she watched, the bones cracking and reforming, the joints bending backward. Their eyes glowed orange, all of them, dozens of them, a wall of burning light that fixed on her and saw the warmth in her, the life in her, the food that she was. "You can't leave," Vance said. He was at the front of the crowd and he was changing too, his face elongating, his jaw unhinging to reveal the teeth beneath. "No one leaves. Not once the Father has seen them. Not once the Father has tasted them." "I'm not food," Naomi said. "Everyone is food." Vance stepped forward. "Everyone burns, everyone dies. The only question is whether you die warm or cold." He lunged. Naomi ran. She ran past them, through them, feeling their hands clutch at her, their nails sharp now like ice, tearing her clothes, her skin. She ran toward the entrance, toward the door, toward the storm. The door was frozen shut. Ice covered it, thick as a wall, and when she touched it she felt the cold bite deep, felt her fingers start to numb. "You see?" Vance was behind her. They all were. The wall of orange eyes, the skittering limbs, the teeth. "There's nowhere to go. The storm is the Father's breath. The ice is his body. You can't escape him. No one can." Naomi turned. She had nothing, no weapon, no plan, just her dying body and her stubborn, stupid, warm heart. "Then I'll die warm," she said. "I'll die human. I'll die myself." Vance smiled. "No," he said, "you won't." He reached for her, and the child stepped between them. The boy from Sublevel 8, the one who had been waiting. He stood there in his old-fashioned clothes, his pale face unreadable, his orange eyes fixed on Naomi. "Father wants her," Vance said. "I know." The child's voice was deeper than it should be, older, ancient, but he wants her willing, he wants her to choose. She chose the vats. She chose to run. That's not the same thing. The child looked at Naomi and she saw something in those orange eyes, something that might have been pity, might have been memory. "I was like you once. I ran too, I fought. I didn't want to be cold." "What changed?" Naomi asked. "The pain." The child touched his chest where his heart would be. "I had leukemia. I was 11 years old and I was dying in agony, and the Father came to me in a dream and showed me the cold, and I chose it. I chose to stop hurting. I chose to stop burning." He stepped closer. "I don't regret it, but I remember what it was like to be warm. I remember what it was like to hope." "Let me go," Naomi said. "I can't. No one can leave, but I can give you time." The child turned to Vance. "She has until the storm breaks, 3 days. Let her walk the facility. Let her see what we are, what she could be, and then she chooses." Vance's jaw worked. His teeth clicked together. "The Father won't wait." "The Father has waited 60 million years." The child's voice was harder now, commanding. "He can wait 3 days." Silence. Then slowly Vance nodded. 3 days," he said. "Then she converts, or she feeds us." He turned and walked away. The others followed, a river of pale flesh and orange light, leaving Naomi alone with the child. "Thank you," she said. "Don't thank me." The child turned to her, and for a moment, just a moment, she saw something human in his face. A boy, scared, alone. "I'm not saving you, I'm just..." delaying. In 3 days you'll choose, and either way you lose. He walked away down the corridor and was swallowed by the frost. Naomi stood alone in the frozen facility, surrounded by ice and monsters, and for the first time since she'd arrived, she felt truly cold. Not the cold of the father, not the cold of conversion. The cold of hope dying. The first night was the worst. Naomi didn't sleep. She couldn't. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the father hanging in his chamber, those orange eyes burning into her soul. Every time she started to drift off, she heard the skittering in the vents, the whispering in the walls, the things that moved in the dark and watched her with eyes that glowed. She sat in her quarters with her back to the wall and her father's pocket watch clutched in her hand. The metal was cold, but it was a human cold, a normal cold, not the hungry cold of the facility. At 300 she heard screaming. It came from below, from sublevel 8 or deeper, a man's voice, raw and terrified, rising and falling in agony. It went on for 20 minutes, then silence. At 400 she heard footsteps outside her door. Light, childish footsteps. They stopped. She held her breath. "Dr. Simmons," the child's voice, muffled by the door. "Are you awake?" "Yes." "May I come in?" "Do I have a choice?" "You always have a choice." A pause. That's the terrible part. She opened the door. The boy stood in the corridor, dressed in the same antique clothes, his face pale and unreadable. In his hands he carried a tray. On the tray was a cup of something that steamed and a plate of. "I'm not eating that," Naomi said. "It's coffee and bread." The boy held up the tray. "Real coffee, real bread from before we started, recycling." Naomi stared at him. "Why?" "Because you're still warm, because you haven't chosen yet, because," he hesitated, "because I remember what it was like to want things, to need things, to be hungry." She took the tray. The coffee was black and bitter. The bread was stale but real. She ate while the boy watched, sitting cross-legged on the floor like a normal child, though nothing about him was normal. "What's your name?" she asked. "Your real name." "I don't remember." He looked at his hands, at the translucent skin where blue veins showed through. "It was a long time ago, before the conversion, before I became this." "How old were you?" 11, he smiled, and it was almost human. "I had a dog, a golden retriever named Max. I used to play baseball. I wanted to be an astronaut." The smile faded. "Then I got sick, leukemia, aggressive. The doctors said 3 months without treatment, maybe a year with." "And your parents brought you here?" "No," the boy's voice dropped. "They didn't know. The father came to me in dreams. He showed me the cold. He promised me peace. And I was so tired, Dr. Simmons, so tired of hurting, so I ran away. I came here, and I chose. And now I'm eternal." He held up his hand, showed her the fingers that were too long, too thin, the nails that were hard and translucent like ice. "I don't hurt, I don't age, I don't die. I'm part of something vast and cold and perfect." He looked at her. "But I still remember Max, I still remember baseball, I still remember what it felt like to be warm." Naomi finished her coffee. It was cold now. Everything was cold. "What do you want from me?" "Nothing." The boy stood. "I want you to choose, but I want you to choose understanding what you're choosing. Not running, not fighting, just choosing." He walked to the door, stopped. "The father is waking up. He's been asleep for decades, but your presence, your cancer, your death, it's made him hungry. In 3 days, when the storm breaks, he'll rise, and then there will be no more choices, only conversion, only cold. Unless you find another way." The boy looked back at her. "There was a woman here once, Dr. Sarah Chen. She tried to find another way." "What happened to her?" "She's in the vats." The boy opened the door. "But before she went, she wrote something, a journal. It's hidden in the old labs on sublevel 3. No one goes there anymore. The frost has taken it, but maybe you can find it." "Why are you helping me?" The boy paused. "Because," he said, "I think she was right, and I think you're going to die anyway. I'd rather you die warm than become what I am." He left. The door didn't lock. Sublevel 3 was frozen. Naomi descended in the elevator, shivering in her thin jacket. The temperature dropped with each floor. By sublevel 3, her breath was steaming again, and the frost on the walls was thick enough to obscure the metal beneath. The elevator doors opened onto a corridor that looked like it had been abandoned for years. The lights were out. The only illumination came from bioluminescent fungus that grew on the walls, pale blue, casting everything in the color of deep ocean. She walked with her hand on the wall, feeling the ice crack under her touch. Her fingers were numb. She should go back. She should find warm clothes, a flashlight, something. But she could feel it, the journal. It was here somewhere. She could feel it like a warmth in her chest, a pull that drew her forward. The old labs were at the end of the corridor. The doors were frozen shut, but she found one that had been forced open, the metal torn like paper. Inside, the room was a wreck. Equipment smashed, papers scattered, and on the wall, written in something dark that might have been ink or might have been blood, a message. "It's not alien, it's US. Cold, so cold, so cold." Naomi searched. Drawers, cabinets, the wreckage of desks. She found photographs. The facility in 1987, the excavation, the father being lifted from the ice. She found charts and graphs and data that meant nothing to her. And then, beneath a collapsed shelf, she found the journal. It was a leather-bound book, water-stained and frozen, the pages stuck together. She forced them open, tearing the paper, and read, "Day 1, they brought me here to study it. Subject W4, the thing in the ice. They think it's alien. They think it's from another world. They're wrong. Day 12, I've analyzed the DNA, or what passes for DNA. It's not from another planet, it's from Earth. But it's old, ancient, Precambrian. It predates multicellular life. It predates everything. Day 30, I understand now. It's not a creature, it's a process. The cold itself made conscious. The ice remembers, the frost thinks, and it wants. God, it wants. Day 47, it wants to freeze the world, not just the surface. Everything, the core, the sun, the universe. It wants to stop time, to end entropy, to make everything perfect and still and cold. Day 61, the conversions aren't infections. They're invitations. The Father offers what we all want, an end to pain, an end to death, and we accept. We always accept. Day 75, I found something in the deepest ice. A memory, a recording. The Father wasn't always alone. There were others, a whole civilization, frozen in the ice before life began. They were us before warmth, before fire, before the sun. Day 82, I can't stop it, I can't fight it, I can only choose. And I choose warm, I choose to burn, even if it kills me, especially if it kills me. Day 90, they're coming for me. I can hear them in the vents, the skittering, the whispering. The cold is calling my name, but I won't go, I won't become. I'll die first. I'll die warm. Day 91, if you're reading this, you have a choice. The Father's power is limited. He can only convert the willing, the ones who choose, but once chosen, there's no going back. So choose carefully. Choose warm, choose life, choose pain. Final entry, the door is open, I can see them. The orange eyes, the teeth, they're smiling. They're always smiling, but I'm not afraid, I'm warm, I'm burning, I'm alive. Sarah Chen, 1992, the last page was torn. There was blood on it. Old, brown blood, frozen and flaking. Naomi held the journal and felt something she hadn't expected. Hope. Sarah Chen had died, but she died human. She died warm. She died herself, and if she could do it, maybe Naomi could too. She heard the skittering as she left the lab. It was in the walls, in the ceiling, above her, below her, all around her. The sound of too many limbs moving on ice, of claws scratching metal, of breath that didn't need lungs. She ran, the corridor stretched. The elevator was so far away, and behind her she heard them coming. The children of the cold, the converted, the hungry. She reached the elevator, pounded the button. The doors were frozen, stuck, and she could see her breath steaming in the air, could feel the temperature dropping even further. You shouldn't have read that. She turned. Vance was there, and Alina and a dozen others. Their orange eyes glowed in the dim blue light. Their limbs were stretched, wrong, moving with that jerking grace. Sarah was wrong, Vance said. She didn't understand. She thought we were victims. She thought the father was a monster. He smiled, and his jaw unhinged just a little, just enough to show the teeth. We're not victims. We're saved. And the father isn't a monster. He's the only hope we have. Hope for what? For survival. Vance stepped closer. The universe is dying, Dr. Simmons. The stars are burning out. Entropy is increasing. Everything is falling apart. The father offers a way out, a way to stop it, to freeze everything at the perfect moment, to preserve, to destroy, to save. Vance was close now, close enough to touch. Your cancer is eating you. The universe's cancer is eating everything. The father can stop both. He can freeze your cells. He can freeze the stars. He can make everything perfect and still and eternal. At what cost? Only warmth. Vance's hand touched her face, ice against skin. Only fire, only the things that destroy us. Naomi slapped his hand away. I'd rather burn. Then burn, Vance stepped back. But first you'll see Alina. The woman stepped forward. She was different now, changed. Her skin was cracked, translucent, and through the cracks Naomi could see something moving, something that glowed. Show her, Vance said. Show her what happens to the unwilling. The vats were on sublevel 9. Naomi didn't know there was a sublevel 9. The elevator only went to 8, but Alina led her through a hidden door, down a staircase carved from ice, into depths that shouldn't exist. The cold here was absolute. It hurt to breathe. It hurt to think. Naomi's skin burned, then went numb. She couldn't feel her fingers, couldn't feel her toes. The father processes the unsuitable here, Alina said. Her voice was different now, deeper, resonating from somewhere not quite human. Those who refuse conversion, those who fight, those who try to escape. The room was vast, cathedral-sized, and filled with vats, hundreds of vats, glass cylinders filled with blue liquid that glowed with its own light, and in each vat a body. Some were whole, some were. Naomi vomited on the ice floor. Dr. Chen is there, Alina said, pointing. Number 237. She's been in there for 30 years. She's still conscious. We keep them conscious. It's more efficient. Naomi looked. She couldn't help herself. At vat 237 a figure floated. A woman, Sarah Chen. Her face was twisted in an expression of endless agony, her mouth open in a scream that had no sound. Her skin was gone, revealing muscles and tendons and things that pulsed and writhed. She's being broken down, Alina said. Molecular by molecular, the father uses everything. Nothing is wasted. Her memories, her knowledge, her warmth, all of it is consumed. All of it is converted. Stop, Naomi whispered. Why? She chose this. She chose to fight. She chose to die warm. Alina turned to her and her face was splitting, cracking, revealing the light beneath. You can choose too, warmth and the vats, or cold and forever. Naomi looked at Sarah Chen, at the other bodies, at the thousands of vats stretching into the darkness. How many? She asked. Since 1987, Alina smiled. 12,463. The facility was built to find them, the dying, the desperate, the ones no one would miss. We bring them here. We offer them choice. Most choose cold. And the rest? The vats. Alina stepped closer. But you're special. The father wants you willing. He wants you to spread his word, to be his prophet. He thinks you'll convince others, thousands, millions. He thinks you'll end the warmth. He's wrong. Is he? Alina touched Naomi's chest, right over her heart. You're dying, Dr. Simmons. Your cancer is growing. In 3 months you'll be too weak to walk. In 6 you'll be dead. Unless you choose cold. Unless you let the father freeze your cells. Stop the burning. Stop the pain. Naomi felt it. The temptation, the lure of the cold. No more pain, no more fear, just peace, just stillness, just the end. She looked at Sarah Chen, at the scream frozen on her face. "No," she said. "Then the vats." "No," Naomi stepped back. "I'm not choosing anything, I'm leaving." "You can't leave," Vance's voice. He was behind her and the others were there too, surrounding her, a wall of pale flesh and orange eyes. "No one leaves, not once they've seen, not once they know." "Then I'll die here," Naomi raised her chin. "But I'll die warm, I'll die human, I'll die myself." They stared at her, the children of the cold, the converted, the saved. Then Vance smiled. "So be it." He raised his hand, and the boy stepped out of the shadows. "Wait." The boy stood between Naomi and Vance. He was different now, changed. His skin was more translucent, his limbs more stretched, but his eyes still held something human. "She hasn't chosen," he said. "She's chosen the vats," Vance said. "She's chosen death. She's chosen to wait." The boy turned to Naomi. 3 days, remember, the storm, the choice." "The Father won't wait," Alina said. "The Father will wait for willing meat." The boy's voice was hard now, commanding. "He always has, he always will." Silence. The orange eyes glowed, the frost on the walls grew thicker. Then Vance nodded. 3 days, he said. "Then she chooses, or we choose for her." They withdrew, melting into the shadows, into the ice, into the dark. Only the boy remained. "Why?" Naomi asked. "Why are you helping me?" "Because," he said, "I remember being human, and I remember thinking that eternity was worth any price." He looked at the vats, at the bodies, at the endless suffering. "I was wrong." He walked away, leaving Naomi alone with the dead and the dying. She sat on the ice floor and wept, warm tears, burning tears, human tears. And somewhere, deep in the facility, something ancient stirred in its sleep and dreamed of cold. The second day brought a sound that Naomi would never forget. She was in her quarters, huddled under blankets that provided no warmth when she heard it. A low, rhythmic thumping that vibrated through the walls, through the floor, through her very bones. It was the sound of something vast moving, something waking. The Father was stirring. She went to the window. The blizzard still raged outside, white on white, the wind screaming like a dying thing. But in the snow she saw movement. Shapes. Pale shapes that moved with that jerking, skittering grace, gathering in the frozen wasteland, forming patterns that hurt her eyes to look at. They were preparing for what she didn't know, but she knew it involved her. At noon, the boy came again. He brought food, real food this time. Soup that steamed, bread that was warm, coffee that burned her tongue. She ate mechanically, not tasting, not caring, just fueling the warmth that was her only defense. "The Father is waking," the boy said. "He's been dreaming of you." "I don't care." "You should." The boy sat across from her. He looked more human today, or perhaps she was just getting used to his wrongness. "When he wakes fully, he'll be hungry. He hasn't fed in decades. He'll need sustenance." "The vats." "No, the vats are for processing, for breaking down. The Father needs something else, something whole, something warm." The boy looked at her. "He needs you." "I'm not food." To him, everything is food. The boy stood. "Come, I'll show you something." They went to sublevel 7, but not to the observation deck. The boy led her through corridors she'd never seen, past doors marked with symbols that looked almost like writing, like the language of cold itself. "This is the feeding chamber," the boy said. The room was small, intimate. In the center was a platform, and on that platform was a man. He was still alive. Naomi could see his chest rising and falling, could see the frost forming on his eyelashes, his lips, his exposed skin. He was naked, tied to the platform with straps that looked like frozen sinew, and his body, God, his body. His skin was translucent like the boy's, but through it Naomi could see things moving, things that weren't organs, things that were growing, spreading, consuming him from the inside. "He's in the final stage," the boy said. The father has been feeding on him for 3 days, taking his warmth, his memories, his life, not converting him, just eating him. The man's eyes opened. They were still human, still brown, still terrified. "Please," he whispered, "please." "Who is he?" Naomi asked. "A truck driver. He broke down on the highway. We brought him here." The boy's voice was flat. "He wouldn't convert. He kept fighting. So the father uses him for sustenance instead." "Help me," the man said. His voice was barely audible. "Help." "I can't," Naomi said. "You could." The boy turned to her. "You could kill him, end his suffering. The father wouldn't stop you. He doesn't care about individual lives. He only cares about the cold, the preservation, the end." Naomi looked at the man, at the things moving under his skin, at the frost that covered him like a shroud. "How?" she asked. "The father keeps him alive, freezes him at the moment of death, over and over, 1,000 deaths, 1,000 moments. He can feel them all." The boy held out something. A knife, ice or something like it, sharp and translucent. "Cut the cord." Naomi took the knife. It was cold in her hand, painfully cold. She approached the platform. The man's eyes tracked her, pleading, begging. "I'm sorry," she whispered. She found the cord. It was at the base of his spine, a thick vein of something blue and glowing, pulsing with light. The father's connection. The thing that kept him alive. She cut it. The man gasped. His body convulsed, and then silence. He was still, truly still. His eyes were open, but they were empty. The frost covered him completely, and through his skin Naomi could see that the things had stopped moving. He was at peace. "Thank you," the boy said. "He was my father." Naomi dropped the knife. "What?" "Before he converted me, before he became this." The boy touched the dead man's face. "He tried to save me. He came here looking for me. They caught him. The father kept him alive to punish me for helping Sarah Chen, for being soft." "I'm sorry." "Don't be." The boy stood. "You gave him peace, the only peace possible here." He looked at her. "Now you understand. The father doesn't just convert, he consumes, he devours. He is hunger itself, and when he wakes fully, he'll be ravenous." "How do I stop him?" "You don't." The boy walked to the door. "But you can delay him, you can weaken him, you can make him wait." "How?" "By being warm." The boy looked back. "By refusing to become cold, by choosing to burn, even when burning means death." He left. Naomi stood with the dead man and wept warm tears that froze on her cheeks. That night she dreamed again. The father was closer now. She could feel his presence, vast and cold and patient. He showed her the universe as he saw it, a fire burning out of control, stars consuming themselves, planets heating and dying, life burning its brief candle against the endless dark. "I can stop it," he whispered. "I can freeze the fire, make everything perfect, still, eternal. By killing everything. By preserving everything." The father showed her Earth frozen, the oceans turned to ice, the forests crystallized, the cities preserved in frost. No more war, no more pain, no more death, just beauty, just peace, just cold. And no more life. "Life is the problem." The father's voice was gentle, almost loving. "Life consumes, life destroys. Life burns through resources and leaves nothing. I've seen 1,000 worlds, 1,000,000, they all burn out, they all die. The only way to save them is to freeze them, to stop them, to make them last forever." "You're wrong." "Am I?" The father showed her the future, the heat death of the universe, entropy winning, everything falling apart. "This is inevitable. The burning will consume everything, unless I stop it, unless I freeze it, unless I make it perfect." "There's another way." "There isn't." The father was closer now. She could feel his breath, cold and metallic. "I've waited 60 million years. I've seen life rise and fall. I've seen civilizations burn themselves to ash. The only constant is the cold. The only permanence is the ice." "Then why do you want me?" "Because you're dying." The father's voice was tender now. "You're already burning out. I can smell the cancer. I can taste the decay. You're perfect. You're ready. You just need to choose. And if I don't, then you'll feed me. The father's teeth appeared, translucent and endless. Either way you serve, either way you become part of me. The only question is whether you serve willing or screaming. Naomi woke with frost on her eyelashes and a scream frozen in her throat. The third day, they came for her. Not the boy, not this time. Vance and Alina and a dozen others, their orange eyes glowing, their limbs stretched and wrong. The storm is breaking, Vance said. The helicopter comes at noon, your choice. Naomi stood. She'd prepared. She'd found a weapon, a pipe, rusted but solid, and hidden it in her clothes. She'd mapped the corridors in her mind. She knew where the exits were, where the weapons might be, where the father slept. She had a plan. It was a terrible plan. It would probably get her killed, but it was better than the vats, better than conversion, better than cold. I choose warm, she said. Vance smiled. Then the vats. No, Naomi pulled the pipe. I choose to fight. She swung. The pipe connected with Vance's head and something cracked, not bone, but something like it, something cold and crystalline. He stumbled back, orange fluid leaking from the wound. Kill her, Alina screamed, but Naomi was already running. The corridors were a maze. She ran left, right, left again, following the map in her mind. Behind her she heard them coming, the skittering, the whispering, the cold. She needed to reach the surface. The helicopter, the storm was breaking. There might be a chance, but they were faster, stronger, more numerous. She turned a corner and found herself face to face with Alina. You can't escape, Alina said. Her jaw was unhinging, her mouth filling with needles. No one escapes the cold. Naomi swung the pipe. Alina caught it. Her hand, those long, cold fingers, wrapped around the metal and froze it. The pipe shattered, turned to ice, turned to dust. Please, Naomi said. I'm human, I'm warm, I don't want to hurt you. You can't hurt us. Alina stepped closer. We're beyond hurt, beyond pain, beyond fear. We're cold, we're perfect. The shot was deafening. Alina stumbled. Orange fluid sprayed from her chest. She looked down, confused, and then fell. Behind her stood a man. Human, warm, holding a rifle. Dr. Simmons, he said. I'm Agent Miller, FBI. I've been tracking this facility for 2 years. He grabbed her hand. Come on, we don't have much time. They ran. Miller knew the layout. He knew where the guards were, where the cameras were, where the weak points were. How did you get in? Naomi asked as they ran. The storm, it disrupted their sensors. I came in with the whiteout. He fired another shot and something in the shadows screamed. I've been trying to get inside for months. You're the first living person I've found. There are others, dozens. Converted, Miller's voice was grim. I know, I've seen it before, other facilities, other outbreaks. Outbreaks? This isn't the only one. They reached a stairwell, started climbing. There are facilities like this all over the world. Alaska, Siberia, Antarctica, Greenland. The father isn't the only one. He's just the biggest. They climbed 3 floors, 4, 5. How do we stop it? Naomi asked. We don't. Miller looked at her. We run, we survive, we warn others. That's it. That's all we can do. They reached the surface. The door was frozen, but Miller had explosives. He set a charge. Ready? Naomi nodded. The explosion was small, controlled, just enough to crack the ice. Miller kicked the door open. Cold air rushed in. The storm was still raging, but weaker now. Through the snow, Naomi could see the helicopter, the blades spinning, the pilot waving frantically. Run, Miller shouted. They ran. The snow was deep, treacherous. Naomi's lungs burned, her legs ached. The cancer in her chest screamed, but she ran. Behind them she heard the skittering. The father was awake, fully awake, and he was hungry. Don't look back, Miller yelled. She looked back. The facility doors had burst open, and emerging from them was the father. He was bigger than she'd thought, much bigger, 30 feet tall or 40 or 50. His skin was the color of deep glacier ice, and his eyes, those burning orange eyes, fixed on her with a hunger that was ancient and absolute. He moved. Not fast, not with speed, but with inevitability. Each step was an earthquake, each breath was a blizzard. The frost spread from his feet, racing across the ground, freezing everything it touched. "Run!" Miller fired at him. The bullets hit, but they didn't stop him. They didn't even slow him. Naomi ran. The helicopter was so close. 20 yards, 10. She reached it, grabbed the door, pulled herself inside. "Go!" Miller shouted. "Go!" The pilot didn't need to be told. The helicopter lifted, shaking, shuddering, rising into the storm. Naomi looked out, saw Miller running, saw the father reaching for him, saw those two long fingers close around him, lift him, bring him to that endless mouth. "No!" she screamed. But it was too late. The father bit, and Miller was gone. They flew south for hours. The storm faded. The sun rose. Naomi watched the facility disappear behind them, shrinking to a speck, then to nothing. "Are you all right?" the pilot asked. "No," Naomi said, "but I'm warm." She looked at her hands. They were trembling, frostbitten, but they were human. She was alive. She was warm. She was free. They landed in Anchorage. Agents met them. Questions were asked. Reports were filed. Naomi told them everything. The father, the conversion, the vats, Miller's sacrifice. "We'll investigate," they said. "We'll send a team." But she knew they'd find nothing. The facility would be empty. The father would be gone, moved to some deeper, colder place. The converted would be scattered, seeding the world with the cold. And she would be watched, monitored, studied. She was the only one who had escaped, the only one who knew. She was a target. They gave her a room in a hotel, a bed, warm food, medicine for her frostbite. She slept for 14 hours. When she woke, there was a boy sitting at the foot of her bed, not the boy from the facility, a different boy, younger, human, warm. "Who are you?" Naomi asked. "My name is Ethan." The boy smiled, and his smile was normal, human, full of warmth. "My father was Agent Miller. He told me about you. He told me to find you if anything happened to him." "I'm sorry." "Don't be." Ethan's smile faded. He knew the risks. He chose to save you, and now I need your help. "Help with what?" Ethan reached into his pocket, pulled out a photograph, showed it to her. It was a facility, identical to black ice, buried in ice. "There's another one," Ethan said. "In Greenland. My father found it last year. It's bigger, older. The father there is different, stronger, awake." "What do you want from me?" "You escaped. You're the only one who ever has. You know things that can help us stop them." Ethan leaned forward. "There's a resistance, Dr. Simmons, people who know about the cold, people who are fighting back, and we need you." Naomi looked at the photograph, at the facility, at the ice. She thought of the father, of those orange eyes, of the hunger. She thought of Sarah Chen, of Miller, of all the others who had died warm. "I can't," she said. "I'm dying cancer. I have months left, maybe less." "I know." Ethan reached out, took her hand. His skin was warm, human, real. "That's why we need you. You have nothing to lose and everything to give." Naomi looked at him, at his young face, at his father's eyes. "Okay," she said. And somewhere in the frozen north, something ancient smiled in its sleep and dreamed of warm blood. The Greenland facility was worse. Naomi knew it the moment the plane landed. The air was wrong, too cold even for Greenland. It tasted of metal and old blood and something else, something ancient. "This is Station Zero," Ethan said. He'd grown in the months since Anchorage, taller now, older. There were lines on his face that hadn't been there before. "It was built in 1942. The Nazis built it. They found something in the ice, something they thought they could use." "The father?" "No." Ethan led her across the frozen runway. "Something else, something worse. The father is young, only 60 million years. The thing here is older, much older." "How much older?" "The ice it's buried in predates the planet." Ethan stopped, looked at her. "It's not from here, it's from somewhere else, and it's been waiting for a very long time." The facility was vast, a city beneath the ice. Naomi walked through corridors that stretched for miles, past rooms that held things she didn't want to see. The converted here were different, older, more changed. Some didn't look human at all anymore. They were things of ice and shadow, their bodies stretched into shapes that hurt the mind. They moved through the facility like ghosts, tending to something deep below, something that stirred and whispered and hungered. The resistance has been trying to stop it, Ethan said. For decades, we've destroyed 7 facilities, killed 3 fathers, but they keep growing, keep spreading, keep waking. Why? Because we warm them. Ethan stopped in front of a massive door. Every time we attack, every time we fight, we bring warmth, we bring energy, we feed them. Then how do we stop them? We don't. Ethan opened the door. We just survive, and we try to slow them down. The room beyond was a cathedral of ice, and in the center, suspended in a block of crystal-clear glacier, was something so vast that Naomi couldn't see all of it. It was the Father, but not the Father. This was bigger, older. Its body filled the space, stretching up into the darkness, down into the depths. Its skin was black, not blue, and through it Naomi could see stars. Actual stars. Constellations that didn't match Earth's sky. We call it the deep, Ethan whispered. It doesn't convert, it doesn't change, it just consumes, eats everything, warmth, life, time. How do we kill it? We don't. A woman's voice, behind them. Naomi turned. The speaker was tall, thin, with white hair and eyes that glowed faintly orange, but she was human, warm, alive. Dr. Sarah Chen, the woman said, I survived. Sarah Chen was 70 years old, but she didn't look it. She looked 40, maybe younger, and she was cold, not converted cold, something else. I found a way, she explained in a room filled with maps and charts. Not to kill them, not to stop them, but to slow them, to freeze them. Freeze the freezer, Naomi asked. Freeze time. Sarah pointed to a diagram. The father entities exist outside normal time. They remember the future. They experience the past. But if we can trap them in a moment, freeze them in a single second, we can stop them. How? We need to go to the source. Sarah looked at her. The original facility, black ice. The father there is young, weak, but he's connected to all the others. If we can freeze him, we can freeze them all. We tried, Naomi said. I barely escaped. You escaped because you were warm, Sarah smiled. But what if you went back cold? The plan was insane. They would return to black ice. Naomi would surrender herself. She would let the father convert her, but not fully. Sarah had developed a serum, a virus, something that would let Naomi keep her mind even as her body changed. You'll be a Trojan horse, Ethan said. Inside the cold, inside the father, and when you're close enough, when you're part of him, you'll release the virus. What does the virus do? It makes him warm. Sarah held up a vial of something that glowed red. It forces him to feel, to experience, to burn, and for something that's never known warmth, never known pain, that will be enough. To kill him. To distract him, to freeze him, to trap him in a moment of agony so intense that time itself will stop. Sarah looked at her. But you'll be trapped too, inside him, forever. Naomi looked at the vial, at the red glow, at the warmth. I'm dying anyway, she said. Yes, Sarah's eyes were kind. But this way your death means something. This way you save the world. They flew north. The storm was waiting. The father knew they were coming. The sky was black, the snow was horizontal, and the cold was a living thing that tried to tear the plane apart. You don't have to do this, Ethan said. Yes, I do. Naomi held the vial against her chest. It was warm, burning, alive. I'm already dead. This just gives me a chance to matter. My father would have done the same thing. Naomi touched his face. He was warm, he chose to burn, and now I choose too. The plane landed, the doors opened, the cold rushed in. Remember, Sarah's voice over the radio, you have to be willing. He won't convert you otherwise, you have to choose. I choose, Naomi whispered. She stepped out into the snow. The father was waiting. He stood in the storm, 30 feet of ice and shadow and ancient hunger. His orange eyes burned through the whiteout, fixed on her, seeing her, knowing her. "You've come back," he said. His voice was the wind. "You've come to choose." Yes, Naomi walked toward him. The snow didn't touch her. The cold didn't bite. She was beyond such things now. "I choose cold, I choose you, I choose forever." "And the virus," the father smiled. "I can smell it, the warmth, the fire. You think you can trick me?" "No." Naomi stopped 10 feet from him, close enough to touch, close enough to be consumed. "I think I can give you what you want, what you've always wanted." "And what is that?" "Warmth." Naomi held up the vial. "You've never felt it, have you? Never known what it is to burn, to live, to die. You've only known cold, only known preservation, only known endless, endless waiting. Warmth destroys. Warmth creates." Naomi stepped closer. "I can show you. I can let you feel it just for a moment, just long enough to know. And then you can choose." Naomi was close enough to touch him now, to feel the frost radiating from his skin. Cold or warm, preservation or destruction, endless stasis or beautiful, burning life. The father looked at her. Those orange eyes saw through her, saw the cancer, saw the death, saw the warmth that still burned in her chest. "You're dying," he said. "Yes. You have months. Minutes maybe, hours, days at most." Naomi smiled. "But I'm warm, I'm burning, I'm alive. And that's something you'll never know unless you let me show you." The father reached out. His hand, those 2 long fingers, touched her face. The cold was overwhelming. It should have killed her instantly. Frozen her blood, stopped her heart, turned her to ice. But she held the vial, and the warmth held her. "Show me," the father whispered. Naomi broke the vial. The warmth was like nothing she'd ever felt. It wasn't heat. It was life, pure, burning, searing life. It flooded through her, through him, through the connection between them. She saw his memories, the birth of the universe, the endless cold before stars, the first warmth, the Big Bang, the beginning of time, the start of everything. And she saw his fear. He had been there in the cold, before warmth, before light. He had existed in the perfect darkness, the perfect stillness, the perfect peace. And then the warmth had come. The stars, the planets, the life, the fire that consumed everything, that burned everything, that ended everything. He had tried to stop it, to freeze it, to preserve it. He had buried himself in ice, in the deepest cold, waiting for the warmth to burn itself out. But it never did, and now he felt it, the warmth, the fire, the burning agony of life. "No," he screamed. "Yes," Naomi whispered. The warmth grew. It spread from her to him to the connection, from the connection to all the others. The fathers, the converted, the cold ones everywhere. They felt it. They burned. And for the first time in 60 million years, the father screamed. The scream was physical. It tore through the facility, through the ice, through the storm. It was a sound of agony, of denial, of something that had never known pain, experiencing it for the first time. The father thrashed. His body convulsed. The frost melted from his skin, revealing flesh that was pale, vulnerable, human. "Stop," he shrieked. "Please stop." "You wanted to know," Naomi said. She was burning now. The virus, the warmth, the connection, it was consuming her. "Now you know." "It hurts." The father fell to his knees. 20 feet of ancient ice brought low by a moment of warmth. "Make it stop, make it stop." "I can't." Naomi was fading. The warmth was eating her, just as the cold would have eaten her. Different paths, same destination. You have to choose, cold or warm, endless preservation or beautiful destruction. "I choose," the father screamed again. "I choose," and then he stopped. The warmth was too much. The pain was too great. He did the only thing he could do. He froze, not his body, his mind, his consciousness. Trapped in a moment of agony so intense that time itself couldn't move. He was frozen in the now. the eternal burning now, and so was Naomi. She woke in darkness, not the darkness of death, not the darkness of cold, the darkness of waiting. She was inside him, inside the Father. Part of his consciousness, part of his memory, part of his endless, frozen scream. "You did it," a voice said. She turned. Sarah Chen was there, or a memory of Sarah Chen, or something else. "He's frozen," Sarah said. "They're all frozen, the fathers, the converted, the cold ones. They can't move, can't think, can't spread." "How long?" "Forever," Sarah smiled. "Or until someone releases them, but that would require warmth, and there's no warmth here, not anymore." "I'm warm." "You're burning." Sarah touched her chest. "The virus, it's eating you. You'll be gone soon." "Good." "Is it?" Sarah looked at her. "You're trapped here with him. Forever, you'll burn and he'll freeze and you'll be together, eternal enemies, eternal companions." Naomi looked around. The darkness, the cold, the endless, endless waiting. "I can feel him," she said. "The Father, he's screaming. He's been screaming for how long?" "Seconds," Sarah said. "Hours, years, time doesn't work here." "He's in pain." "Yes." "And I'm burning." "Yes." "Then we're the same," Naomi smiled. "Two sides of the same coin, warm and cold, burning and freezing, life and preservation." "What will you do?" Sarah asked. "I'll wait." Naomi sat down. "I'll burn and I'll watch him freeze, and maybe I'll tell him stories about warmth, about life, about what it means to be human." "He won't listen." "Maybe not." Naomi closed her eyes. "But I'll speak and I'll burn and I'll be warm forever." Above, in the world of ice and storm, Ethan found her body. It was frozen, perfectly preserved, a smile on her face, the vial empty in her hand. "She did it," Sarah's voice over the radio. "They're all frozen. The facilities are going dark. The cold is receding." "And Naomi?" "She's gone," Sarah's voice was soft. "But she's not dead. She's elsewhere with him, keeping him company, keeping him frozen." Ethan lifted her body. It was light, cold, perfect. "What do we do now?" "We survive," Sarah said. "We rebuild, we stay warm, and we remember. The cold is still out there, still waiting, still hungry." "Will they come back?" "Eventually," Sarah paused. "But not today, not tomorrow, maybe not for 1,000 years. We bought time, that's all we can do." Ethan carried Naomi's body to the plane. He wrapped her in blankets, warm blankets, heavy blankets. "Stay warm," he whispered. And somewhere in the dark, in the cold, in the endless frozen moment, Naomi smiled. She was burning. She was warm. She was alive. Time passed differently in the dark. Naomi didn't know how long she'd been there. Years, centuries, millennia. The darkness had no markers, no clocks, no sun or stars to mark the passing days, only the burning. The virus was still there in her chest, eating her cells, keeping her warm. She should have died long ago, should have burned away to nothing. But here, in this frozen moment, death was as impossible as life. She existed. That was all, and she wasn't alone. "You're still here," the Father's voice. It came from everywhere and nowhere, from the darkness itself. "I'm still burning," Naomi replied. "You should have stopped by now. The warmth should have consumed you." "It can't." Naomi opened her eyes. Not that it mattered. There was nothing to see. "We're frozen, remember, trapped in this moment, this perfect burning moment." "I remember." The Father's voice was different now, smaller, more human. "I remember everything, the warmth, the pain, the burning. I remember what it was like to feel." "Do you miss it?" Silence. Then, "I don't know. I don't understand the question." "You were alive," Naomi said. "For a moment, truly alive, burning, feeling, existing. Do you miss that?" "I am alive." The Father's voice was defensive. "I exist, I persist, I endure." "You freeze," Naomi stood. "Not that there was anything to stand on. You preserve, you wait. That's not life, that's just delay." "Life ends." Life burns. Naomi felt the warmth in her chest. The cancer and the virus locked in eternal struggle. It burns bright and hot and then it ends. But while it burns, it's beautiful, it's warm, it's real. It hurts. Yes, Naomi smiled. It hurts, that's how you know it's real. They talked. Or she talked and he listened. Or he screamed and she waited. Or they sat in silence, two entities locked in eternal opposition, warm and cold, burning and frozen. She told him about her life, her mother, her father, the pocket watch, the mass grave in Quebec, the cancer, the fear. I was afraid to die, she said. That's why I came to you. I thought cold was better than dead. I thought preservation was better than ending. And now I know better, Naomi laughed. It echoed in the darkness, warm and alive. Burning is better than freezing, even if it ends, especially if it ends, because the ending is what makes it matter. I don't understand. I know, Naomi reached out. Not with her hand, she had no hands here, no body, just consciousness, but with her will, her warmth. That's why I'm here, to teach you. I don't want to learn. You don't have a choice, Naomi smiled. We're stuck together, forever, or at least until someone lets us out. No one will let us out. No, Naomi agreed, but they might let me out. It was Ethan who did it. 50 years later, or 100 or 1,000, time meant nothing in the dark, but eventually the world above changed, the ice receded, the cold retreated, humanity rebuilt. And Ethan grew old. He never forgot Naomi, never forgot what she'd done. He spent his life studying the fathers, the cold, the facilities. He became the world's foremost expert on entities of ice. And he found a way. She's not dead, he told his granddaughter, Dr. Maya Chen, named for the Sarah who had started it all. She's trapped, frozen, burning. Can we save her? Maybe. Ethan was old now, dying, warm, but it would require sacrifice. What kind? Someone would have to take her place. Ethan looked at the facility on the screen. Black ice, still frozen, still waiting. Someone would have to enter the darkness, become the warmth that keeps the father frozen. And if we don't? Eventually he'll thaw, eventually he'll wake, eventually he'll remember how to be cold. Ethan coughed, blood on his hand, warm blood, and then he'll come for us all. Maya made her choice. She was young, 25. She had her whole life ahead of her, but she also had her grandfather's stories, her great-aunt's legacy, the weight of generations who had fought the cold. I'm coming, she said, stepping into the facility. I'm coming to take your place. She found the chamber, the frozen heart, the place where Naomi and the father were locked in eternal struggle. Dr. Simmons, she called. Can you hear me? The darkness stirred. I can hear you, Naomi said. Her voice was different, older, wiser, sadder. You're warm. I'm Maya, Ethan's granddaughter, Sarah's, well, not exactly niece, but family. I know who you are. Naomi's voice was gentle. I've been watching through him, through the connection. I know everything that's happened. I'm here to take your place. Maya held up a device, a warmth generator, something Ethan's team had developed. You can go live, be warm. And you? I'll stay, Maya smiled. I'll burn, I'll keep him frozen. You don't have to. I want to, Maya stepped closer. You've done enough, you've burned long enough, it's someone else's turn. Naomi was silent. Then, he's not what you think. He's a monster. He's scared, Naomi's voice was soft. He's just scared of the warmth, of the burning, of the end. He's been running from death for 60 million years. And now he knows he can't run forever, Naomi sighed. I've taught him that the hard way. Can he change? I don't know, Naomi paused. Maybe, if someone keeps teaching him, if someone keeps burning, if someone shows him that warmth isn't the enemy, that life isn't destruction, that burning is better than freezing. I'll try. I know you will, Naomi's voice was fading. Go now, while you can, before he wakes, before he remembers. Maya activated the device. The warmth flooded the chamber, the darkness retreated, and in its place Naomi appeared. She looked the same. 50 years, 100 years, 1,000 years, she hadn't aged, but her eyes were different. They glowed faintly orange now, and her skin was pale, almost translucent. "You're changed," Maya said. "We both are." Naomi stepped forward, touched Maya's face. "Be careful, he's not evil, he's just old and tired and scared. Don't hate him, teach him." "I will." Naomi walked toward the exit, toward the light, toward the world. She stopped at the door, looked back. "Goodbye, Father," she whispered. "Thank you." The darkness didn't answer. But somewhere, deep in the frozen heart of the facility, something stirred. Something that had once been ancient and cold and hungry. And for the first time in 60 million years, it felt something that might have been. Gratitude. Naomi stepped out into the world. The sun was bright. The air was warm. The snow was melting. She fell to her knees, wept. Warm tears, burning tears, human tears. "Welcome back," someone said. She looked up. Ethan was there. Old, dying, but still warm, still alive, still burning. "You waited," she said. "I waited." He helped her up. "We all waited." There were others, survivors, descendants. The resistance grown into an army, then a government, then a world. "The fathers?" she asked. "Gone," Ethan smiled. "Frozen. Maya is keeping them, all of them. She found a way to connect to all the facilities. She's burning for all of them, keeping them all frozen. Forever. As long as she burns." Ethan's smile faded. "Which won't be forever. Nothing burns forever, but it will be long enough for us to prepare, to build, to be ready." "Ready for what?" "For when they wake." Ethan looked at the sky. "Because they will, eventually. Nothing stays frozen forever, not even them." Naomi lived. She shouldn't have. The virus, the cancer, the endless years in the dark, she should have died a dozen times over. But she lived. She grew old, slowly, gracefully. She watched the world change. She watched the ice retreat. She watched humanity learn to live with the cold. And she wrote. Books, papers, stories, the truth about the fathers, the truth about the cold, the truth about what it meant to burn. "Warmth is not the enemy," she wrote. "Life is not destruction. Burning is not dying. Burning is living, truly living. And even when the fire goes out, the memory of warmth remains." She died at 97. Old, warm, surrounded by family, by love, by the burning, beautiful, terrible warmth of human connection. Her last words were, "Tell Maya, thank you, tell the Father, I'm sorry, and tell them both, keep burning." In the dark, in the cold, in the endless frozen moment, Maya heard. She smiled, and she burned brighter. "Did you hear that?" she asked. The Father didn't answer. He'd stopped answering long ago, stopped screaming, stopped fighting. He just waited, frozen, preserved. But sometimes in the endless dark, Maya thought she felt something, a shift, a change. The warmth was working, not converting him, not destroying him, just teaching him, showing him, making him understand. And sometimes when she burned brightest, when the warmth was most intense, she thought she heard him whisper, "Thank you." Years passed. Centuries, millennia. The sun grew old, the earth changed. Humanity spread to the stars, and Maya kept burning. She wasn't human anymore. Hadn't been for a long time. She was something else, something warm, something burning, something alive. And the Father was changing too. He was still cold, still frozen, still preserved, but he was learning that warmth wasn't the enemy. Learning that life wasn't destruction. Learning that burning was better than freezing. "You're ready," Maya said one day. "For what?" The Father's voice was different now, softer, gentler, more human. "To wake up," the darkness stirred. "I don't know how." "I know." Maya reached out, not with her hand, with her warmth. "Let me show you." She released him. The frozen moment shattered. Time resumed, and the Father opened his eyes. He was small now, human-sized. His skin was still blue, still cold, but his eyes. His eyes were warm. "I'm burning," he whispered. "Yes," Maya smiled. "You finally understand." "It hurts." "Yes." "It's beautiful." "Yes." Maya took his hand. Her warmth flowed into him. His cold flowed into her. "Welcome to life." They stepped out of the facility. The sun was rising. The ice was melting. The world was warm. "What do I do now?" the father asked. "You live," Maya said. "You burn, you love, you die." "Die?" The father's voice trembled. "I don't want to die." "No one does." Maya squeezed his hand. "But that's what makes it matter. The ending, the finitude, the knowledge that it can't last forever." "I could freeze again, preserve myself, wait for the end." "You could," Maya looked at him, "but would you want to?" The father, no, not the father anymore. Just him. The entity that had been ancient and cold and hungry. The entity that was now new and warm and afraid. He looked at the sun. He felt the warmth on his skin. He felt his heart. He had a heart now beating, burning, living. "No," he whispered. "I don't want to freeze." "Then burn with me," Maya smiled. "Let's burn together." They walked into the sunrise, two entities, warm and cold, burning and frozen, human and alien, life and life, just life, burning bright and beautiful and brief. And when they finally died, centuries later, surrounded by children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren, they died warm. The last words on their shared gravestone read, "Here lie the warm and the cold, the burning and the frozen, the living and the also living." They chose warmth, they chose life, they chose to burn. And in the stars, where humanity had spread, where warmth had conquered cold, where burning had defeated freezing, they told stories. Stories of Naomi. Stories of Maya. Stories of the father who learned to be warm. Stories of the ice that melted. Stories of the cold that ended. And when children asked, "Is it better to burn or to freeze?" the answer was always the same. Burn. Burn bright. Burn hot. And when the fire goes out, be glad that you burned it all. The end. But the warmth remains. It always remains. Forever burning. Forever warm. Forever alive. Thank you for listening to tonight's stories. If you enjoyed them, please leave a like and subscribe.